great. Welcome. Good to have you. Thank you.
It's nice to meet you guys.
Thank you so much for coming. Are you off to work writing after this? What's the thing that you're going to after this?
So if any of you guys know of the Purge movies, there's a Purge TV show on USA. So I'm one of the writers on the show. So yeah, when we get off the call, I'll head into the writer's room and write a story for the afternoon, morning and afternoon. Yeah.
Cool. What's
So.
Yeah, we're maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves because we want to talk about Aftermath, but while we're on the subject,
For sure.
how does that work? Is there a season of writing, like a fixed period of time, or are you guys writing year round?
Basically we're probably in the room for like 4 to 5 months, like breaking story. So we sit in the conference room with whiteboards all over the room and just throw up ideas and try to get big story arcs in place. And then we deal with tons and tons of notes from networks and studios, and that's been its own process. But yeah, we basically just brainstorm and sit around and talk story, and also talk about food. It tends to be another thing that everyone likes to talk about. So it's great. Writing can be so solitary and lonely, and when there's 7 writers total. So if you don't have an idea in the moment, there's 6 other people who might, and that kind of is I equate it to being on a team, playing sports, writing by team, and it tends to be really efficient, and so you can get a lot more done because you have a lot of other brains working.
So do you usually? Sorry, I don't mean to jump.
Yeah, let's jump in.
When it comes to this, like a TV show writing, you start with your over the season story arc, and then you do little story arcs within the episodes as well?
Yeah, so the creators of the show tend to have very, very big arcs for the season and for characters, and so once you get a sense of where a character is starting and where you want the character to end up, you begin to fill in the major building blocks, kind of episode by episode, and then from there, each writer is given his or her own episode. You kind of come in and break that given episode, knowing sort of where you are in the season. So I was working on episode 4, and so I have to make sure it builds on episode 1 through 3 and sets up 5 through 10.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like building a puzzle that way.
Do you film out of order? That's kind of an obvious question. But I mean, sometimes do you film portions of multiple episodes, or do you do?
That's a good question. It's super tricky because of director guild rules. So another director can't shoot someone else's material unless they get a waiver. So yeah, we end up shooting episodes pretty much in order. Now within a given episode, obviously, we don't shoot those in order, but we definitely shoot 1 through 10 pretty much in order. Yeah. Yeah, and that.
Do you have any say over director notes on how you would like the shot be done?
You mean a specific shot or a specific?
If it's really detrimental to your to the freeze.
Are you're still there? You with us, Jeremy? Do we have a freeze?
Yeah, I think it froze up.
Yeah. Sorry guys. Let's see if we can get that restarted.
I have bad luck today.
Yeah. I thought you cursed us.
Yes, I did.
No, it's because I'm too close to the video equipment.
Oh, yeah, everything breaks when it's in seated.
When we come back, you guys, I want to move to Aftermath and then sort of talk about that because it's most related to the kind of short film thinking that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I was gonna transition to that with my question.
Nice. And then we'll come back to this because it's definitely very interesting.
Take 2.
Now that we're back, it's Arthur's question wasn't important. We're gonna move on to Aftermath.
I really was interested
The person whom you're trying to reach is currently unavailable.
He said, okay, I'm done with this.
He's probably in the phone call.
By the way, everybody give your maximum respect, phones away, focus on this. This person's taking time out of their life for free to give you guys something.
Oh, we missed the call?
Maybe we were both calling each other.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Is that any better?
We hear you, now we see you.
Okay, good. I think that was I think my Wi-Fi cut out.
Okay. What's that?
Sorry, so question, yeah, you guys were asking
Oh.
about, put on like,
Hold on one sec. One of my students who is on it noted that we should try to record. Here we go.
oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, expand?
And expand. You still with us?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Enter full screen. Okay. Thank you, Ash. Alright, so,
So yeah, just remind me the question.
well, actually, Jeremy, we're, my video production class is, they're just about to do short narrative films. So I was thinking maybe we could spend some time with Aftermath and then kind of work our way back to what you're doing currently.
Absolutely.
We also had a really good discussion in my film studies class the other day about Aftermath and also Apocalypse Now, which we had just watched. And
I'm very flattered that you guys watched those together. Very, very.
well, there was a lot to connect in terms of the idea of apocalypse and some of the relationships and the way characters develop. So it was pretty cool. But maybe you could just kind of tell us the story, like take us through, where were you in your life? Many people have posed questions like, why this story? Talk us through the process, and then we'll ask some questions if we have them.
So that was my thesis. I was in film school at the time. I made that my third year, and basically the only requirement is that you have to make a short film. It has to be over 10 minutes, and I wasn't like writing multiple scripts. That was kind of the only thing that I was writing at the time. And it was the only kind of movie that I wanted to make. I knew I wanted to make a story about two brothers. Like, I'm the oldest of three. I knew I wanted to cast my little brother, so the kid in the movie is my little brother. And I basically just wanted to write a story about, like, our friendship. And when a little brother stops being just like your idiot little brother and actually maybe starts to become your friend, I was interested in that kind of transition. And I was also interested in shooting in the snow with guns and bad guys and like people running through the woods with torches, and I knew I wanted to shoot up in Vermont. I knew I wanted it to be in the cold. Like, I love Fargo is one of my favorite movies, so I was obsessed with shooting something in that landscape. And it was just sort of an opportunity to meld like a very, very simple story about brothers in the middle of a genre movie with, about survival. And it sort of just came from that. I mean, I spent basically, I would say maybe almost a year, not full time, but almost a year working on the script, and then about a year both shooting and editing the movie. And so, yeah, I mean, it really sort of, that's where it started, and I kind of, you never know exactly what you're gonna get when you start making something, but it ended up being something that obviously I'm very, very proud of, and I feel like it's a personal film without it being two people sitting and talking, like in New York City, which is where I was living at the time. I just wanted to sort of have a chance to like make a movie that I would have wanted to see when I was like a little kid, like playing dress up in the basement and like bossing my little brothers around. Like, these were the kinds of stories that we ended up playing, and like where I would force them to be the bad guys and I would just shoot them with Nerf guns. So it was essentially just like a bigger version of dress up. We stayed with my family. Everyone slept like on the floor. My parents cooked. It was friends pitching in from school. Friends in all of the major departments. One of my close friends was the DP. One of my best friends was the editor. It was, just one of those like all hands on deck, call in all favors, and then you have to recruit people to shoot for 2 weeks in the freezing cold, which was its own challenge. So yeah, we shot for 2 weeks, all exterior, no interior locations with any heat, and it was really, really, really cold. But that's the way you get like people's breath coming out of their mouth when they talk. So all of those things, I sort of wanted to wrap into the movie.
Nice. I want to follow up on one of those questions. From the film studies class, we've been talking about genres and certain kinds of stories and why people choose to tell the stories they choose. So I just want to push you a little bit further about why, so a story about brothers. but why post-apocalyptic? Why this degree of intensity? You know, why these
In
states?
terms of the survival story?
Why was that the setting that you wanted to
I
write?
guess in part it was a lot of things that I had been focused on and thinking about and scared of. I was just sort of, I think it's a story about sort of what humans will do to the world, and I think we are every day like making the world a more uninhabitable place. Like I don't think that we treat it with respect, and I was imagining, and I don't think it's that far off. I don't actually think it's that close, but I was imagining just a sort of a civilization-caused ice age. If we have just ruined the planet, as I think that we kind of are, I was imagining just sort of me and my brother if we woke up one day and suddenly the world had changed. And I was interested in that kind of overwhelming fear, and a kind of fear that on a day-to-day basis you don't even really wrestle with, and it's like so big that how could you possibly begin to tackle it? So the movie to me isn't so much about what happened to the world, it's about what characters do when they find themselves in a world that is like beyond all understanding. And I think, at least like for the little kid, for the boy in the movie, he remembers what the world used to be like before it turned. And I was interested in just sort of, what someone would feel like when they wish the world would turn back. But why the story to me was, I don't know, does that sort of answer the question? I mean, that's kind of what was going on while I was thinking about writing the story, was just what human beings are doing to the world, and how powerful the natural world can be in response.
I do have a couple of questions. They're a little bit more broad, so bear with me. So first of all, what inspired you to become involved in film? And what would you be doing if you never became involved in film?
Good questions. I think I was writing stories before I knew that was a job that you could get paid to do. So I sort of kind of lucked into it, I guess, in a sense. Like I did a lot of creative writing all through my life, and then did it in college as well. And I don't know, to me it's a real, one of my favorite things to do is just go to the movies and sit in the theater and watch something. And I think that that's a tremendous privilege. And yeah, I'd love to be able to do it on a smaller scale, career-wise. To be totally honest, if I wasn't in film, I think I would certainly be teaching. I think that's just, I've gotten to do that in film school too, and I absolutely loved it. So whether it would be teaching English or teaching film, I think it would be something like that.
Number one advice you would give to all new filmmakers out there?
I think you should just write a ton of stuff. I think anybody who wants to direct should plan to write themselves into that job. I haven't directed anything since I made Aftermath, but it's certainly the goal to get back behind the camera again. And I think in this business, when there's so little that you can control, when you control the script, you have a little bit more power than anybody else. So I would just say write and make your own stuff as much as possible. And there's just so many avenues for content now that you could have a podcast and suddenly the next day you could have a TV show. There's just no rule. So if it's a story that you're really excited about, start there and let that excitement lead the way forward.
One of the things I want to know is the process of how you went from doing the short film Aftermath into The Purge. How was that process went?
So that movie has remained incredibly helpful, just as a piece of my portfolio and samples that I send out. I came out of film school. I had that short, and I had another TV script that I had written also in film school. And basically both of those were my calling cards. I went and like hit up every connection that I had, and through like friends from college and friends from film school, I managed to like get agents and managers out in LA. Ended up moving out here, and amazingly enough, getting on the show did not come through any of the agents or managers. I had like the ticket, that would be the ticket. They didn't do anything. All they did was just take money from you. So it ended up being one of the co-producers on Aftermath. He was working at Blumhouse in their like new TV department. We just happened to be getting drinks the week that he was sending submissions to the showrunners, and that was it. And I almost canceled on him because I had broken up with my girlfriend 2 days before, and I didn't feel like leaving the house.
Oh.
And it's so good that I didn't cancel. So it was like one of those things. It was just a friend from film school. The timing happened to be right, and not just that, but like the script and the film ended up being, just catching the showrunner's eye at the right time. They were looking for someone like that, and yeah, so it was actually through Aftermath that I ended up getting that job.
Were the locations in Aftermath real locations in Vermont?
Yeah. So all of those places are about like 20 minutes from where my parents live, up like about an hour south of Montreal. So like way far north. All of those locations were found, within like 20 minutes. And I just happened to be like they were selling. So the main farmhouse, like where they end up with all the like crazy peeling paint and stuff, they had been selling that property. They'd been trying to sell that property for years, and I happened to just go over there and see it. And as soon as I saw the location, I wrote the script around that location. Once I talked to those guys, I just knew that was like $1 million location. Like I never could have afforded to like make it look like that.
Like couldn't have built a set like that.
No, I mean not for free, which is what we got the location for. Like we got the location for a week for free.
Did the location ever get sold?
Did they get what?
Did the location ever get sold?
I don't actually know. I don't think that they did. I think it's still there. So if anyone wants to go shoot a movie in the same house, it's available. Pretty sure.
It's funny to imagine using Aftermath on the real estate site as a real estate video for the house.
Yeah.
I don't think they know what we did in that house. Like I don't know that they fully understood that we were like busting out windows and like breaking doors and stuff. But the house was already in total disaster. Yeah, I mean, he almost fell like through the floorboards. Like it was a tough shoot, but obviously,
It sounded like
just the look of it.
It brought more realism to the actors, I bet.
Yeah.
They were so cool. But we had a small RV where they could like sit and be warm. But I don't know. I never went inside because as soon as you go inside when it's that cold, you just never want to leave.
What was the most difficult part of the film to shoot? What would you say was probably the most difficult shot?
Difficult shot?
Or difficult scene?
That was him tonight, man.
I would say a lot of the chase stuff that we did of them running through the woods. We shot like 12 days over 2 weeks, and so it was day 3, and we were shooting like big long dolly track shots in the woods. So we like lugged all the track and the gear like maybe a quarter mile, half mile from like base camp into the woods, and took us all day to set up. I mean, you guys know how long like those shots can take. And we're doing like big long runs, and we're getting the sled to like tip over and all this stuff. And then it starts to snow, and then it starts to blizzard, and we have to get out because it's getting dark. So we're lugging all the gear out. It's like full on snowstorm. And when we get back to the house, I learned from the DIT and from the DP and the producer that we lost the memory card. They cannot find the memory card anywhere. And it turned out it just fell somewhere in the snow. And the producer went out like the next day with a metal detector, but it was like couldn't find it. And I was obviously incredibly upset since we had fought really, really hard to get this footage. And we ended up just reshooting it at the end and making it way better. So instead of dolly track, we like put it on the back of a pickup and we like shot it in my backyard. So most of that running stuff was made actually much better than the footage we shot. And the reason I know that is that 6 weeks later, our neighbor found the memory card in like a puddle and it still worked. So I looked at all the footage and we shot everything again and made it way better. And none of that footage is in the movie. So yeah, it was an opportunity to like, I always feel like if you could shoot a movie again right after you finished shooting it once, you could make everything better. And I had the opportunity to at least make that chase scene better. So I would say that was the hardest, which was why it was so devastating to lose it. And then you just have to figure out, okay, well, we have a certain amount of time. How are we going to make it easier? We can't spend another day setting up that dolly track, so we have to simplify it. And in simplifying it, I think we ended up making it better. So I'm proud of that sequence in particular. Also, we shot in the daytime and it's night, obviously, in the cut. So that was also tricky, dealing with the sun.
So how much different was your final product from your original conception of the script, or your original, your first draft of the script?
Good question. And I'm happy to I can send the drafts if you guys want to compare them. There was a lot more humor, I think, in the script. There was a lot more moments of like levity and some, like my brother's like really good at impressions and I like had written scenes into that. And there were certain things that I think were really important to me, but that overall didn't end up. I think the movie became much more quiet and much more silent. And we ended up stripping out a lot of the dialogue. So what we really liked was kind of telling a story where the elements got as much of a voice as the characters. And so there's actually maybe only like 25 lines in like the whole thing, which it was just a process of stripping stuff out. So I think a lot of the things that in the script I thought were really important in a scene ended up being conveyed just between looks, between brothers. And that's when you get really good actors and they say everything that you couldn't actually put into the scenes. So you write all these scenes and then you realize you don't need it, and you cut it all out and make it as sort of economical as possible.
Was it tough to kind of get rid of that kind of stuff? Like as the writer, was it tough to accept that? And
For sure.
You said you weren't the editor of it, right? You had a friend of yours that was editing it?
Yeah, so one of my best friends is an amazing editor, and you just you work with someone that you trust, and I trusted his taste, and I trusted his input, and I trusted that he knew the kind of movie I was trying to make, and that he wasn't as close as I was, and could see the things that I couldn't, and you still battle it out, and some of the times he's wrong, and some of the times I'm wrong, but you always end up with like a better solution, and I feel like, that's the best movie that I've made for a reason, because I wasn't just the only one cutting it. I think when you just need you need a brain trust, and with the editor, my friend Jeff, who was the editor, he really pushed me, and we just didn't settle for it. We did reshoots, because some of the scenes weren't working. So that I would say the process of letting go is really hard, but it was a really valuable lesson where you realize that something might be important to you, but that doesn't mean that it services the story the best.
Yeah. And just my last question
so
on the production of the film. I'm curious about the timetable. So like you said, it took about a year of not full-time writing the script, but as far as like pre-production and then production and then post-production, how you kind of divvied up the time and what you
for sure. So I was taking full-time, I was taking probably 5 or 6 classes my second year. So I was super busy, and writing the script was like just one of the things that I did. And then in the fall of my 3rd year, so this is like the fall of 2012, I just had thesis class. So all I did was write the script and start prepping. So I would say we probably prepped, on site we probably prepped for like 2 to 3 weeks beforehand. But I had been meeting with my DP for 2 or 3 months, storyboarding like every shot. So we shot So yeah, I would say maybe 2 to 3 weeks of really intense prep up in Vermont outside, and then 12 days of shooting, and then months of editing. But it was, Jeff, who was the editor, was working full time, so it would be when we could edit together. Maybe it was only 2 days a week, or maybe it was just on weekends, or it was just nights. He lived with me for a period of time because he was between apartments and we cut. He lived on my floor and we edited like all day. We just crammed it in whenever we could, but it ended up being stretched out over about a year. And so I did 2 days of reshoots in the summer. So some of those scenes were actually shot in the summer, which maybe you can tell or maybe you can't. The actor doesn't even have a beard in one of the scenes because he was in a play and needed to shave. So we did 2 days of reshoots and then probably another couple months of editing and sound mixing and color and VFX and all that other stuff. So it ended up being about a year of post, but I was also teaching at the time. I was still in school, so this wasn't like a full-time thing, although it ended up sort of taking a long time as a result.
I have 2 questions for you, and I was wondering, after production that you just, for Aftermath, did you ever want to change anything after watching the film, or is there anything that you would like absolutely keep?
In terms of the cut that is now?
Yeah, so like in the final cut, would you actually add anything, or would you just take things out? Like, did you ever think about that?
So I watched it last night, because I knew we were going to be talking today. I hadn't watched the movie in a long time. So I watched it last night. There is one thing that I would change. I wish I could change it. And I know my editor would agree because we realized it after the fact. It's so after the older brother is killed, when the little brother comes out and sees his brother like lying there in his long johns, like dead on the ground, and he's like staring at him. My brother did like the reaction shot on his face when he's like seeing his brother for the first time and he walks out of frame. There's the shot where he is like basically keeping himself from crying. We cut that shot almost in half. So I would have given that character like the full moment to just like live in that shot, live in that moment, and it would have added probably 20 seconds, but powerful emotional stuff. And that every time I watch it, I don't want to cut out of that shot, and we do cut out of that shot, so that's the one thing that I would change. I don't know, I think that's the only one that jumps out at me. It's the one that I wish I could like go back in and just like drag that clip a little bit longer. But as you know, as soon as you drag that clip, it changes everything. So there was no chance to do it.
I want to just follow on that, and back to you, Ash. Just because in the film studies class, we actually had a discussion about the emotions of that character at exactly that point. And was he a little bit less emotional than people might have expected because he had already reconciled himself to the new reality? Or, what did that mean? So that actually, the way it's cut actually posed really interesting questions for people about how he was going to be in the new reality.
Yeah, I think, look, when I watch it, I think I could have pushed more. I could have pushed my brother more to be more emotional, which I think is is the reaction that I would expect. I also know that the moment where like he's dragging his brother into the room led out to be another place where I wish I had like ADR of some like crying when he like puts his head on his shoulder. The issue with that is that the older brother was really tall and really heavy, and my brother like couldn't really drag him. So the issue for him was more of a physical thing than an emotional thing, and that was just by virtue of the fact that my brother is a lot smaller than the older brother actor, and now if I did that movie again, like I would have pushed it, we would have done another take, and I would have been like, I don't care how heavy it is, you gotta cry also. I think I would have pushed it more, but
I don't know. I think
on the day that we got it, so we had to make it work.
I don't know. I think it has its own poignancy that he is, the way he is. I think if you hadn't had the kind of funeral with the sheep, we might have missed it. But since that was there, that's his ritual mourning, So anyway, back to you, Hap,
I'm
sorry.
glad that saved it, because that's actually another thing that we shot, was that, like, with the sheep and that burial, we ended up reshooting that, a couple little moments like that where we just wanted to like dial in some of the like emotional aftermath, if you will.
That was one of my favorite shots of the feet and the sheet going over his feet and like the door frame. I love that shot.
Yeah.
It was
I'm
beautiful.
really glad to hear it. Yeah, we that was shot in the dead of summer.
Ashley, question two.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, have you ever thought that the characters were like real, and what would they be doing at this current moment?
Yeah, so people always, I'm curious what you guys think. I have my own thoughts about like how that kid is doing after he steps outside the door. I'm interested in what you guys think. I have my own thoughts. I'm happy to tell them first. Well, obviously the older brother is dead, but the younger brother, my hope is that he is alive, and I think that for him, he needed. As much as he loves his older brother, in order to really survive and recognize the gravity of the world, the brother needed to not be around. And that was like the eye-opening experience for him. And so I think that in order to make the older brother's death mean something, the younger brother is definitely alive. And he's surviving somewhere, and like maybe that has found other people like him to sort of create like a new family. That's my hope for the character, is that he's okay.
So the whole idea was how once the older brother is gone, because he was originally dependent on his older brother to do stuff for him. And,
Right.
And the other thing that I have to ask, which is a bit of a silly question, is there any room for sequels?
Yeah. So the first question was there a first question?
Yes.
Remind me.
So, was that intentional? How it's a message of the younger brother being overly dependent on the older brother?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like you wanna protect. In like wanting to protect someone so much, you end up overprotecting them and keeping them from growing up. That you sort of are the reason that they don't get to experience those things and make those mistakes. And in that world, any mistake could cost you your life. So I really understand an older brother who will do anything to protect his younger brother, including keeping him from growing up and keeping him like a kid. And that both causes frustration, but he also can't help himself from doing it. Like I totally relate to that impulse when I was watching my little brother, who plays the little brother, wanting to sort of, he had just started college, and like girls and drinking and all that stuff was super new, and you both want to keep him from messing up, but you also know that those mistakes are the thing that teach a person how to become a real person.
Absolutely.
And so it was that tension that I was super interested in. And then when you throw that into like life or death stakes, I can really understand it from both sides. And I think for the little brother, he needed to be on his own in order to learn what he needed to learn. As for sequels, I have toyed with feature-length versions of Aftermath. I've been working on a full-length version, and also like a TV pilot set in that world without those brothers, but that expands on sort of the mythology of what happens in the world. Because I think in a short, you can totally get away with the shorthand of just post-apocalyptic world. I think when you expand into a larger format, you sort of have to wrestle with the why of it all, which there just isn't space for in 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of like how the world in the Aftermath works, did you have to go through any kind of world building, or was it just kind of like it's a short, no apocalypse, whatever?
I mean, I think it relies on some shorthand. I think what you learn about the world, you really learn from that dinner table scene when that girl shows up and he just shoots her in the head. I think to me, that was always the moment where I think we knew that if we got to that moment, the audience would be like, oh, this is a very, very, very dangerous world where nobody trusts anybody. And I think that was as much as we could get away with in terms of world building. I think you understand just through action that there are no homes, people are on the run, people are robbing and stealing and raiding, and it's really cold, and that the most important thing is food and shelter, and that the search for a place to stay and somewhere to eat, or like that's the thing that drives people, yeah, my hope, I think that was as much world building as we could get away with, and then we just tried to show how cold it was and how being outside was just horrible.
The very first scene does that world building job too, right? That sets down the rules of this world.
Yeah, it's funny. Some people always think like that's just like a robbery, and they don't know. I think I could have made that scene better, like if I had to go back and do it again. But yeah, it tells you that people are willing to kill for canned goods, and I think that's enough to sort of set the stage for this sort of like kill or be killed lawless world.
Arthur?
Yeah.
In short films, do you ever have a problem for like shooting for multiple days with continuity?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with anything. I always feel like if an audience is going to catch those continuity errors, you haven't done your job as a storyteller. Like, I think if someone is out of the story enough to pay attention to like which glass, like how much liquid is in the glass, like they're not engaged in the story as much as they should be. So you pay attention to it as much as you can. I mean, we had a script supervisor who was watching continuity. I had the editor like looking at that stuff, and then you just like do the best that you can. That's just not something I pay attention to as much when I'm directing. I just think that there's way more things that I want to prioritize. That scene when he comes up, when the little brother goes and sees the little bedroom, and the older brother comes up and he almost shoots him. Will has no beard. It's shot in the summer. My brother has a different haircut. He doesn't have the same backpack. Like, doesn't have a mustache. But
did anyone notice?
No.
I noticed the beard. That's the only thing I noticed.
Did you guys notice?
I noticed the beard.
He doesn't have a beard?
The haircut I did notice only because for the first portion of the film he's wearing a hat. I thought that was kind of, I didn't know if that was intentional or not, but he kind of, towards the end, his hat comes off and I think he's kind of almost accepting the world that he's coming into. We're like, okay, now I gotta work.
Marcus, also, you think like an editor though. You're looking for all those problems to solve. I've seen it 20 times and I've never noticed those continuity things.
Yeah, actually, I didn't notice.
I noticed the beard was missing.
But yeah, he has no beard, so we just like dirtied him up, and I just, it was like one of those things where like the continuity, like you said, continuity is shot. Like I have no chance. Like, if I want to make the best movie, I'm gonna hope that you're in the scene. And that was a scene that when we shot it the first time, I knew it wasn't right. I just didn't know why. And it was only through editing. I remember I was editing with Jeff, and I just started acting. When we got to that scene in the cut, I just started acting that scene out. And knew we had to go reshoot it. Like, it wasn't right, so I just knew, all right, we're going to sacrifice all continuity. I don't care, because we need to get that beat totally right, where the brother just says. He says the worst possible thing to his little brother. Just, okay, fine, you want to get killed, I guess. And so that was never in the script, and we never shot it the first time, and I just dealt with the continuity, because it is what it is.
That was ad-libbed?
It wasn't ad-lib, I just started improvising it in the edit room, and then I wrote it all down, and then we went like a month later and shot it. So that was a scene we just like, actor didn't feel like it was right either, and we did the best we could the first time around, and lucky enough we could go up and shoot for one day in the summer.
Do you have any of the original, like your rough cuts? Do you still have those or no?
Not in any kind of like sendable format. I might have one, I should check. I'm happy to send like an old cut. If I can find it on Vimeo, I wonder if it's still up there. Like a locked cut that's like never actually locked.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to see that.
That would be cool.
Yeah, same.
Super fun. Like one of those things. I could probably find it. I know that it would be very different than the finished thing.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
We'd be curious to see. You mentioned there are different drafts of the script. If you have an older one, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I can definitely hunt those down. You can see an early draft of the script had no sort of like post-apocalyptic element at all.
Wow.
It was super different, and like over the weekend, I'm sure I can probably try to track it down and send it up for sure.
I'm glad you kept at least one comedic moment. There was that moment where he's like, I don't even know if the waitress even heard me. You know, I ordered medium rare. That was a really great moment for me.
Yeah,
I
good.
thought that was awesome.
I have a question back in terms of the story. Like obviously, like the story is very dear to your heart. It's about like brothers, and like I know I'm an oldest sibling as well. Like telling stories as a filmmaker that are dear to your heart. Do you have any conflicts with keeping it something that is like if something's dear to your heart, but it's not necessarily like interesting and people wouldn't watch it? Like, do you have any advice on like kind of or any experience like moderating something that maybe like something you want to make, but something that might not be as easily understood or as interesting?
I guess I would say that the trick with writing anything is to figure out how to make it relatable to someone who's coming in with none of that emotional connection.
Yeah.
But I think without the writer being interested in investigating some specific dynamic, some specific relationship, something about a world, something about people, if you lead with that, the trick is how do you make it relatable? And sometimes the answer is take that and put it in the middle of a genre movie, which is what I did. Sometimes it's, I always think like the best example, like the sort of North Star example of what I love about movies is E.T., where that story is about a kid growing up, dealing with his place in his family, dealing with his parents. He's also trying to like help an alien get home. And so you have this like alien genre movie, but really it's about a kid growing up. I think it's about figuring out the way to tell the story that you want to tell. And there are rules for structuring story and for character arcs and all that stuff. But if you're not, without being excited about some element of the story, I think it has to start there, or else you're just not going to get anyone to be invested. I just think I knew that I could make people care about these brothers, since I really cared about them. I mean, that's like where the story started. I knew I loved these brothers. I knew I wanted to see an older brother protect his little brother and a little brother grow up. And the rest sort of was always in service of that. And so to me, that's what for all of the guns and action, I knew I was going to tell a story about brothers. Does that sort of answer the question? I mean,
Yeah.
Do you have another question or want to press further? I'm certainly happy to talk about it.
Yeah, like say like you wanted to write something.
You can still move towards into like the camera screen because I totally cannot see you.
There we go. Yeah. If you are like, say, you want to write something, you're completely invested in it yourself, and you want to make a film or just write the story and be able to tell the story and convey it to people. But it's not something that is super easily relatable, like something like being an older sibling, like that's relatable to a lot of people, but something, I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but something that is kind of unique to you, it's a message you want to get across, it's something dear to your heart, but it's something that would be harder to convey to people and keep interesting, but you want to convey that message. What would be the best way to get it across?
Also, I'll ask you a question. You guys just watched Apocalypse Now. I bet none of you have ever been to Vietnam and fought in the Vietnam War.
Careful with your assumptions.
Tell me that I'm wrong before I continue. But I think like what is it about that story that got you guys invested? Like you can't in and of itself relate to being a soldier to war. What did they get? Like why are you invested in that story and in that character?
And have you seen it, Jay? This class actually hasn't watched it. Yeah, different class.
But I was in that class.
Oh, you were in that class. I'm sorry, Jay. Of course. Right. Yeah, Jay.
I think like because a lot of the characters are like younger and from like different places. Like even like historically, any context of like Vietnam and stuff. Like all the soldiers that were going because of the draft and stuff were just average people.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, they were young. They were our age.
Well, like 18.
Yeah, they were our age and younger.
Right. And so I think for me, and I'm like with you guys, when I watch that movie, I can't specifically relate to that exact experience, but I can relate to the idea of doing something incredibly difficult that you don't understand, that's way over your head, that's like takes you down this incredibly strange rabbit hole. Like all of those things, I can relate to it when you separate the circumstance from the actual journey and the setting from the actual emotions, and it's figuring out, it's not just about, like you said, like the relationship between the older brother and younger brother. It doesn't actually matter if you're an older brother or a younger brother. There's something else that the story is about, whether it's about protection, whether it's about a sense of home, a sense of security. Any of those things I think an audience can relate to, because they'll just fill in the blanks with their own version of whatever that is. And even if someone, I don't know, I mean, even if someone has no siblings, I think they can understand the idea of caring for something and wanting to protect it, whether that's a child or a pet or a parent. You know, you'll fill in the relationship with whatever you have in your life, as long as that emotion feels real and genuine.
I agree. Like
I think so. So just like dig a little bit deeper into what the relationship is, and not just, you know, don't just worry that, oh, they're not going to understand it because if someone doesn't have a younger brother. It's about what's really driving the relationship.
Okay.
Anybody who hasn't asked a question have one? Nika or ladies or anybody else? No? Al? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think somebody asked about, but how did you end up with the title of the short film?
Oh, the title?
Yeah.
Oh, that, for Aftermath.
Yeah.
Yes.
We lost you for a sec. Say that again.
Oh, we good?
We're good now. Say it again. Yep.
Okay, so I am terrible with titles. I'm like notorious. They are the hardest thing. I actually cannot come up with a title before I'm done making the movie. It's true of every script I've ever written. Like, they're just so hard, and I think you have to figure out, for me at least, I had to write the whole story, go through the whole editing process to really figure out what the story was about. And we went through probably 5 different titles. I think ultimately we wanted a title that set the audience up to know that something very, very terrible had happened, and that this was about like what's left in its wake. But I had so many different titles that Aftermath just felt both simple and like vague enough that it could almost like work for any movie. Like any movie really could be called Aftermath. Because it's just about sort of what happens after something happens, and that ends up being sort of every movie. I just wanted something that sounded kind of, that had that like post-apocalyptic feel. But we had so many terrible, terrible titles that just didn't work. Like I had the working title was Day 427, which. That's not right, for sure, but it gets at the idea of something, you know, the feeling that like there was an important day in the lives of these characters and they had been living a certain way for their whole life, and after this movie ends, their lives are going to be very, very different. And so it took a little while. And we just watched the movie a bunch of times, that opening title sequence, and if the title felt right, and eventually Aftermath did, well, then we never stuck with it.
Question. The process of casting, and getting all the materials, like music and all that stuff, how did that go?
So casting was pretty easy because there's not that many people in it. So I knew immediately I was going to have my little brother, and through friends of his, actors that he had worked with and directors he had worked with, that's how I found the older brother. Everyone else was an actor that I had worked with in film school, like on a short exercise or something like that. That's true of the girl who comes up the hill and of the guy who comes out of the woods at the way end that gets shot. The scary guy who looks like the mountain from Game of comes up the stairs, he was our dolly grip. And as soon as I fast in the movie, buddy, like we couldn't have cast anyone scarier. He was also the nicest dude. I was like, we have to put like blood on your face and like make you into a killer in the movie. And he was so excited not to be setting up dolly track for a day. So the casting, that's basically it. There's only those 5 people. All the bad guys were crew that weren't needed in the shot. We just like gave them torches and put them in costumes and like had them run. And for me, one of the coolest parts was that I got to work with the Coen Brothers sound team on the design, because they were teaching a class at film school. They were teaching like a master class for thesis students. And I was like in the front row with my hand raised every day, because those directors are some of my favorite directors. Obviously I said that Fargo was a huge influence, so yeah, I got to go to their studio, and they put actual wind sounds from Fargo that they had used in Aftermath, which was obviously super cool. So his sound designer came in and mixed the movie at the end, which was awesome.
I just have a question. You had your younger brother in the movie. Was there ever a point where you felt that maybe you should also be in it as well?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, I'm not an actor, and I know that like through and through. What I wanted to get out of this was to be the director, and I think
That's understandable.
I don't know enough about directing to both be a director and an actor, but I know enough about acting to know that I am not an actor. So yeah, to me, I just wanted to cast like a more attractive, taller version of myself. Yeah. So,
Did you and your brother butt heads?
Sorry?
So no, it's not funny. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just wondering if you and your brother ever kind of butt heads as like on set or anything.
No, when it comes to like working, like on a story, he and I both we've made other shorts together, and we have like the same reference points. And so when something's not right, we definitely like I'll listen to him if he tells me that a scene doesn't feel right, if a beat doesn't feel right. If I give him a note that he doesn't understand, like there's no one's feeling nervous about being honest with the other person. Like we just have too much history, and the same goes for any of those actors, but especially with Noah, like there was never an issue, and if there was, at the end of the day, I'm in charge and he knows it. But he also knows to do the performance it's however he wants.
Right.
That's it. So he has freedom in that regard to disregard notes. But I think I always found that you give a note to a really good actor and they come back with something that you couldn't possibly have asked for. It's better than what you thought. And that happened time and again where I would give a note to either one of them, and they knew enough about the story to give me something that was way better than I had any business like actually asking for. And that was sort of the most amazing part of making the movie. You go back to the monitor, you watch a take, and you just say, wow, I cannot believe I gave that note. And then you realize, no, actually, they're just amazing actors. They saw what you were asking for and figured out a way of making it their own and giving you something better than you thought you were going to get.
Jeremy, I'm conscious of the time. Do you have to go to work, or do you have time for a couple more questions?
I have a little bit more time since work got pushed a little bit. That's why I just got an email that came in. So I have a little bit more time, so yeah.
Awesome.
I'm good to go
I
for
was wondering about when you send out a demo reel.
Okay, go for it.
When you send out like a demo reel of like your past work and whatnot, did you like just link all like what you've done like to like maybe a Vimeo, or did you like cut up pieces of each film of like really key points? Yeah.
So I've never done like a director's reel because I haven't had a need to do that. When I need to send like a director's reel, I just send Aftermath. Because I don't think anything that I'm going to cut together from, I've only made like 3, I've really only made 2 shorts that I would ever send as representations of my work. And I just don't think I'm going to cut those. Like one is a high school comedy and the other is Aftermath. Like I end up just sending Aftermath. I think unless you have a ton of work, I don't know. I never, me personally, like when, for example, when I'm on The Purge and we get director or DP reels, I never find them that helpful because they're always like cut to some pop song and it feels like a music video, I would much prefer to just watch someone's short film. That tells me so much more about their storytelling, their eye, their vision, their ability to work with actors. A really good demo reel just tells me that you can edit. I don't really get a sense of pacing, of storytelling, of shot selection. That's me. So I've never felt like my best foot is put forward cutting one of those. I think that if you do cut them, make sure that you actually get to see scenes, because I think that that's what you're sending a demo reel to an agent or to a manager or to anybody. They still want to just feel engaged, and I find that to be harder when it comes off like a music vid. But that's me.
What about writing as well? Like, do you ever send actual script that you would like to produce one day, or do you just send out like a basic idea of like what you're capable of writing, and that you don't have anything really fully invested in because like you don't want someone taking your idea?
Yeah, is your question about sending stuff and
Yes.
deciding to send stuff? Yeah, so like I was saying, I mean, like the business of being a writer is constantly sending things that don't have any money, don't have any producers. You're trying to get people to attach themselves and say like, hey, we want to make this TV show, or yes, we want to make this movie. Most of the stuff that I have sent out in the last couple of years since graduating from film school has all been to try to get a job just based on that material. Not necessarily to have that material produced, but to get a job writing some other script, getting on a TV show. Now, it's only after having been on the show now for 2 years where that script that got me the job, now someone actually might be interested in producing it. But it took getting the job first. So I mean, I constantly send things that have no unfinished in the sense that it's a script with no actors and no footage.
But you're sending scripts, not just treatments.
I mean, I've definitely sent both, but the best shot is to write the full script. I think, I mean, I've treatments, and sometimes that has worked. Most often, they'll just say, cool, we like this, go write the script. And you're in the same position that you were before. So it ends up being, ends up being a tremendous amount of work that you do up front to hopefully get paid for the work that you already did. It's a totally backward system and often incredibly frustrating for that very reason, is that you end up having to prove that you're good enough to get the job by actually doing the work.
Right.
And that ends up being a tremendous commitment of time and energy. You guys know how long it takes to write a script and make a script good. And sometimes you have to do that on your own before you ever get paid.
That reminds me of a follow-up. Oh, sorry, Jay, can I do this follow-up?
Yeah.
About the aftermath script writing process. In my script writing class, we've broken it down in terms of 3-act structure and Blake Snyder's story beats and everything. Were you thinking in that kind of intentionally structural way when you wrote it, or is it just that you wrote something that has all that in its DNA, and so we can find it when we go looking?
That's such a good question. I'm so curious where you broke I like how you broke it down and where you think those terms are.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was less conscious of structure than I am now. I learned a lot about story structure from making the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think my sense of story is much stronger, in part thanks to the editing process, where we really figured out where those beats needed to be and where those turns needed to happen. I don't know, I'm curious, Luke, like where did you pin as the first act turn? I don't remember. Because I know what I think it is, but I don't know, I'm not positive that we'll necessarily think it's the same thing.
I mean, I think the turn into Act 2 that the class sort of generally agreed on was having to flee.
Interesting, okay.
Which,
Yeah, at the same time, I always thought that it's when he gets up from the table. He's like, nope, I'm not interested in this way of life, and he like leaves his brother there. And his brother is like, dude, this is how the world works. And he's like, I'm not interested in that. He's saying like, I reject this. I want things to be different. to me, I mean, it's about the same time because shortly after.
It's right around the same time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one is sort of an external turn, the other is the emotional turn.
Right.
That happen close together.
I think we've had that, yeah, we've had proponents of that point too, but it's right around that time.
It's about like 4 or 5 minutes in. So yeah, and then I think to me the second act ends when the brother is killed, and the last act, brother on his own. And I think the big point is probably like take the gun. It's like no, I don't want to take it.
That's what I was thinking.
Something
too.
around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sets up the
those
third
are
act
things
well.
where like you don't. I certainly didn't think like when I was writing the story, like oh that's the act turn, and like I didn't quite structure it the way I would. I learned a lot from making that movie that influences every script that I write. As a result, like I'm a huge believer in structure as a guide because it's otherwise it's so hard to find your way through the woods when you're writing something. Having those guideposts really helps me.
Do you think it would have been as good though if you had that structure, backbone in mind, or would it have become somehow formulaic or?
I don't think so because I think if you want to be super reductive, every story is formulaic if you force it to be. I think that there are just things that we like as people in stories, and we don't want them to be we don't want them to be formulaic, but we still want to know where we are in a story at any given time. And I think it's just a matter of massaging those and still being surprising, even though people know they know what's going to happen. I think it more matters sort of how things happen.
Cool. Last question, Jay. Did you have one more?
Yeah. Which since you've worked on small independent kind of student thesis stuff like Aftermath, but you've also worked in the Purge series and bigger productions. Which one do you prefer, or if you don't have a preference, how are they different, in terms of notably to you?
Damn. That was promising too. He looked like he had a good answer. Look.
we lost you for a second.
Oh, my bad.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah. It was about just sort of the difference between low budget Aftermath filmmaking and big stuff like The Purge.
Yeah.
Look, Aftermath is still the most fun that I've ever had making anything. And there's one reason for that, which is that I was in control and I was in charge. And I wrote it, I got to direct it, I was the person on set who,
You probably just like sitting in the seat.
Did that freeze?
Yeah. You were the person on set who ...
Oh, that I was the person on set who just sort of dictates the energy and the work ethic and the spirit. I think that to me is an incredible part of being a director, is leading the charge. And on The Purge, that I'm one little cog in the wheel. I'm one little worker bee, and I definitely find that hard sometimes because I'd like to be in charge. That's why I went to school to be a director. It's definitely hard to step aside and watch people do things that you think are worse than what you would do. So yeah, in that sense, I mean, it's on such a huge scale, 300 crew members and 3 studios and all these producers and executive producers, and if I was in charge, I would have a way more fun time. So Aftermath is still the most fun because I got to be with my friends, I got to make a story that I cared about, that was super personal, and all I want to do is find a way back behind the camera. Writing on The Purge is a way to write myself into a job directing a movie, or having my own show. But to be able to have the privilege of telling the story that I care about, that's the thing that I actually don't care how it happens. I'd happily make another short film or a tiny feature. If it was mine, then at least I feel like I'm saying what I want to be saying.
Out of curiosity, how many scripts do you have going right now? How many stories do you have written on your own original content going right now?
So in terms of work, like I'm on the show right now. So I have to write scripts for that and outline for that. I'm also doing a feature rewrite for the director of the Purge movies. He and I became very close last season. He's a producer on another movie. So I'm doing like a feature rewrite, like a studio rewrite for that, which could be something that I might be able to direct, which would be awesome. And then I have like, one or two other TV projects that I work on in my free time, which right now is non-existent. So I'm just like 2 projects right now, because I go from the room, I get out in the like mid-afternoon and I go to a writing space and I work. I basically have 2 writing jobs. So I just don't have the bandwidth to do more than that. I'm writing a feature and TV scripts at the same time, and I just can't really do more than that. But there are things that I can't wait to dive into, like a TV show of my own and a feature of my own that I'll do as soon as I'm off the clock on this other stuff.
Okay.
Jeremy, our class has to dismiss. It's been such a privilege to have you. This has been fascinating. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be in touch just to follow up. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Luke. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, man.
You as well, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.